Serious, what is the scariest thing to happen to you when you've been home alone? Probably pretty lame compared to most stories on here. Was working pretty late, like 3 a.m., on my computer when I get an alert from my security camera that detected motion. I checked it, and there was a person staring into my apartment window in full view of where I was working. I closed the computer, turned off the lights and went into the bathroom for a bit. Turns out being extra paranoid when someone is staring into your apartment at 3 a.m. isn't a good combination. I checked the camera memory and the guy was there for 20 minutes, just real casual. Called the cops and the kid ran away and came back an hour later. Haven't seen him since.
This happened many years ago when I was but a youngster. In my suburb there had recently been a spate of break-and-enters. Where I live, they tend to happen suburb by suburb. Like, one suburb will get hit a bunch, then there'll be nothing for a while. My family had gone away for the weekend, but I had stayed home because I had work. I was up at midnight watching a James Bond movie, Live and Let Die for those playing at home, with all the lights in the house turned off, and I heard a really sudden and strange thud from my kitchen/living area. I instantly knew it was a weird noise. Nothing in the house made any noises like that. So it was immediately suspicious. Just as I was about to get up to go and check it out, I heard it again. That's when I realized it was actually the thudding of the thick glass sliding door from the kitchen to the outdoor patio. As I mentioned, all the lights are off, so I'm making my way through the house turning lights on. When I reached the light switch to turn on the patio light, I hit all of the lights at once, including the light at my front door, which is visible from where I'm now standing. We had those glass panels next to the front door, which I could now also see out of since the light was on. There was nobody at the patio area at this time, but through the glass panels at the front door I saw someone sprint past and out of the yard. Even though I couldn't see any detail, it was unmistakable to see that it was a person running past. It later occurred to me that they were most likely kicking the glass patio door to try and smash it and break in, as I later learned that this is apparently one common method of entry during burglaries. I had initially assumed they were hitting it with something, but a boot would explain the deep hollow thud of the noise better than striking it with something. Was pretty spooky at the time, just that sudden realization of that is not a normal noise. Kind of crazy what your intuition knows in moments like that.
I was a little kid when this occurred. I was home alone, upstairs in my bedroom, and my dad was down the street at a neighbor's house. I had never heard this alarm go off before and no one told me about it, so when it went off it scared the toenails out of me. It was located in our big empty basement, so that only amplified the noise like the world's worst kind of acoustics. It took about a minute to figure out the house wasn't on fire, so I tried to investigate what the alarm could be. I wasn't able to get down the basement steps because it was so loud and painful to my ears to be that close to the noise. Not sure how normal that is, but this motherfucker was loud. Like loudest thing I've ever heard in my life, kinda loud. After a few failed attempts at investigating, I finally got worried enough to run out of the house and look for my dad. I found him talking to one of our neighbors outside in their yard down the street and told him some alarm is going off and I didn't know what to do. He got really annoyed at me like I did something wrong, but he walked with me back home and he realized what it was, so he opened a bunch of windows and went down to check the alarm. I don't know if it was a false alarm or not, but he just put new batteries in it and told me to leave the windows open for a while. He went back to the neighbor's house and left me alone again. About 5 minutes later the alarm went off again, so I don't think it was a bad battery. I went to get my dad for a second time and now he was super annoyed. He came home and just took the batteries out of the thing and left again. Father of the year. I didn't die though, so that's cool, but maybe I got brain damage from sneaky carbon monoxide and that's why I'm so dumb. Please vote in your local elections and stay safe.
Early teen years. Power went out while I was taking a shower late at night. I got out of the shower already freaked out and looked outside through the window. My house was the only one without power. Stupid teenage brain, this is clearly an attempt on my life. Reality, house had a weird problem where the power would cut out if the water heater and air conditioner happened to turn on the same time. It had never happened to me before that, but my dad assured me that was the problem once he finally came home.
It was spooky movie night at a friend's and we were 3 movies deep, just finished watching Dark Skies. I was hungry so I was like alright getting my leftovers, so I went downstairs by myself. When I closed the fridge I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. And when I turned to see what it was there, it was a ghostly white, skeletal thing. Just staring at me from outside the patio, with shimmering hazy lights pulsing behind it. I freaked, dropped my food and run up the stairs nearly in tears babbling about someone or thing in the backyard. Turns out, it was just my own reflection mixed with the lights and steam from the hot tub outside, but I've never been so scared in my life. My girlfriend and I both travel a lot for work, so it's not unusual for only one of us to be home on any given week. Last fall she was in San Francisco and I was home alone for a few days. We live in an apartment on the top floor of a building. Above us is a roof with a deck available to everyone. Middle of the night I get up to use the bathroom and on the walk back to bed I look over to the study. There's a sliding door in the study leading to a balcony. I immediately stop dead in my tracks. I see the outline of a person standing on my balcony facing me. I run over, hit the lights, grab a knife from the knife block and start dialing 911.
911, what's your emergency?
The person is a kid, no more than 16. He sees me hit the lights, grab a knife and my phone, and he immediately grabs the railing on my balcony and flings himself over. I run over, assuming I just watched someone kill themselves, only to see him safe and sound on the balcony below me. He then hurdles off that balcony. He's jumping from floor to floor. He hits the parking lot in the back of our building safely and then sprints off. Cops finally come and break up a party on the roof. Turns out he was just a drunk friend of someone on the second floor and got dared to do it. Also shout out to my dog for being asleep 15 feet from the balcony and not doing anything.
I doubt anybody is going to read this, but I'm going to put it here anyway. One day I was coming home from work in a rush. I stopped at home quick to grab some things before meeting my husband at my daughter's cheer practice. I notice when I get home that the front door is hanging wide open, which is unusual. I didn't think much of it because my daughter unfortunately has a tough time remembering to do things like that. I opened the front door and there was an old man looking to be about 70 sitting on my couch, just munching away on a bag of chocolate chip cookies that I had made from scratch the night before. We lock eyes. He continues eating the cookies but seems suspicious. He says hi. So I say hi back with both of us clearly thoroughly confused at the other's presence. He then asks, "Do I know you?" I hesitate a little because of the sheer and utter confusion of why is there someone in my house and why is he questioning who I am? And why is he eating my cookies? From just a glance at him, he seemed to not be a threat, so since I'm friendly enough, I kept talking to him to figure out what I could do to get him not only out of my house but make sure I don't do anything to set him off. Better safe than sorry, you know. I ask him what he's doing here. He claims he lives here. Now I'm starting to get scared. He didn't seem upset and he was still happily crunching away on cookies. I tell him that I've lived here for the past 7 years, so he must be mistaken. He said Linda told him to go inside. Who is Linda? And why is she directing strangers into my house to eat my goddamn cookies? Anyway, I told him I wasn't sure who Linda was, but went on for another minute or two before I told him I needed to put my work stuff down, as the entire conversation was taking place near my front door. I went to the bathroom and kept thinking WTF on repeat with my heart pounding. I come back out to the living room after I've gathered my thoughts and tell him I'm going to go outside in search of Linda and asked him to hang tough. He happily obliged as he continued eating the cookies. I went out the door and waited for a few minutes, my mind rushing a million miles a minute. Do I call the cops? Do I try and find this Linda myself? Someone comes out of my neighbor's house. Someone I've never seen before. It's a long shot, but I ask, "Excuse me. Are you Linda, or do you happen to know a Linda?" Her head snaps towards me and without answering my questions asks why. I start to explain that there is an older gentleman sitting on my couch eating my cookies and I'm trying to find the Linda person he's talking about. She lands her head inside the house and says, "Linda. We found him." It turns out that it was my new neighbor's husband who had a stroke, so his memory wasn't really fully there. They turned out to be really nice people, but trying to negotiate my cookies back from an old man sitting in my house was very scary at the time.
There had been a scratching in my ceiling for a while, and my landlady was dragging her feet over having it looked into. One night, around 3 a.m., the scratching became so bad it woke me up from a dead sleep. I tried to reassure myself that whatever it was couldn't really get through to me, and I would be fine until I could call my landlady the next day and really press the issue. Then some debris fell from my ceiling. Whatever was up there had managed to dig a small hole into my room. I screamed, and heard some scurrying away from my approximate location. Grabbed any stuff I needed for the next day, got the fuck out of there, shut the door tight behind me, and slept on the couch. I called my landlady first thing in the morning, and she had someone come while I was at work that day to check it out. A mama raccoon had managed to get her way into the space between the roof and my ceiling and had given birth to a litter of kids. The guy speculated that the kids were getting old enough to start wrestling around, and that was likely what led to the hole in my ceiling. Luckily it was just small, the size of a quarter, so there weren't any angry raccoons hanging out in my room when I got home. They were able to safely trap and release the whole little family, but I still started hunting for new apartments ASAP. Wasn't alone, but I was a teenager with my girlfriend and my parents weren't home. We were house sitting for my mom who was on vacation with her boyfriend. We're sitting there in the living room, which is right next to the front porch. It's about 3:30 a.m. or so, when we hear loud and heavy footsteps on the porch. Guy goes next to the windows and goes really loud. I'm assuming it's because the curtains are closed. This really spooked us because the couch we were sitting on was near the windows. Had those curtains not have been closed, he could have seen us. Freaked out. We shut off all the lights in the house as the footsteps go away. We look out the windows to see if there's anyone out there, and there's a big burly man with a kind of plastic bag. We live in a small town out in the middle of hillbilly country, so any stores or takeout restaurants are closed at this point in time, so it's a mystery where he got this bag and what was in it. This guy walks down the street, turns around back towards my house and disappears into a parking lot next door to us. Not 2 minutes later, we hear the doorknob to the side door, which was thankfully locked, jiggle. My dog starts going absolutely insane at the noise. He's a small dog with a loud bark, so I think he scared him away, but that was that. We debated calling the cops but never did, and nothing else ever came of it. Edit. We were going to call the cops if he came back, but he never did. We figured he was either drunk or high or something else.
A man tried to kidnap me when I was 7 to 8. I always have been alone at home because my mom is a single mom and has to work, right? So, we kinda had a procedure if someone knocked on our door while I was alone. First thing was to ignore him, but sometimes it might be important, so if they kept knocking I just questioned what did they need. So I was playing on the computer and suddenly they start ringing, and ringing. Suddenly I hear that they ring the neighbors and the front door of the building opens. Alright, it's maybe the mailman. Then they start knocking each door asking for a kid. A little strange, but they told people that they were from social services or something similar. Finally, they arrive at my home. I don't know how they knew someone was there, but they kept knocking and knocking pretty hard. I called my mother and she told me to told them. My mother was at the supermarket and that she would be back soon. They now start a conversation with me, still knocking a lot and saying that they are important people and need to check my house. They insist a lot that I open the door. I panicked, I didn't know what to do, I was crying on the phone asking my mom what to do. Finally she told me that I had to threaten them to call the police. I did that and suddenly they panicked a little. They now were more relaxed, but they were still knocking the door and asking to enter the house to check something. I put on the headphones and kept playing the computer until they left. Maybe they were not dangerous people, but it was suspicious as fuck.
I was probably about 14, me and my friend were at my house while my parents were away for the night. It was about 3 a.m., we were just talking spooky stories and stuff as you do at that age, which made us on edge. My parents had this really old school phone that you had to wind up on the side to use. We were just messing about and my friend picked up the phone, put it to his ear and immediately slammed it back on the phone base. He said he heard breathing, the phone obviously didn't work as it had cut wires, and looked genuinely terrified, but I thought surely he was just messing around to try and scare me. So I went ahead and picked up the phone and sure enough, someone clearly breathing. I threw the phone at the ground and almost started crying. We left that house very quick and went and walked to his house for the night. The next day we went back and I tried to recreate the noise on the phone, just in case it was noise just coming through the cut wires or something, but to this day I haven't been able to hear it again. I don't like going to that house anymore.